الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there is no God, there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His servant and messenger. O ye who believe, revere Allah as He should be revered, and die not except as Muslims. Amma ba'd, to proceed. In Surah 24, chapter An-Nur, the light, verse 35, we find what is translated to mean, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. A likeness of His light is the niche in which there is a lamp. The lamp enclosed in a gloss. The gloss is like a pearly white brilliant star lit from the oil of a blessed tree. An olive tree, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil all but glows, though no fire touches it. Light upon light. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides to His light whom He chooses, and He sets forth examples and parables for the people. And Allah is the knower of all things. Physical light is but a reflection of the true light in the world of reality. And that true light is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Light conveys both an absence of darkness and a quality that will help us see and understand things more clearly. We can only think of Allah in terms of our phenomenal experience. And in the phenomenal world, light is the purest thing that we know. But physical light has its drawbacks, incidental to its physical nature. It is dependent on some kind of energy source. If AMCC doesn't pay its electric bill, we wouldn't have these fans running today, and we wouldn't be able to see each other. We wouldn't have lights in here. It is a passing phenomenon. The light goes on and the light goes off. If we take it to be a form of motion or energy, it's unstable. When there's an energy surge, the light brightens. Sometimes you tap the wall and the light dims. So physical light has its limitations, unlike the light of Allah. Its speed is 186,000 miles per hour. And there are stars whose lights take thousands, millions, and billions of years before their light reaches the earth. The perfect light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free of any of these defects. Allah is the guide of the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth. All the heavens and all the earths, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides light for them. He controls the affairs of the stars, the sun, the moon, the heavens. And it is by His light the heavens and earth are illuminated. These great sources of light actually worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sun and the moon submit to Allah. The sun never holds a picket sign and says, I'm not going to come up today. I'm not going to rise today. The moon never holds a picket sign and says, I'm not going to set today. So the sun and the moon are Muslims in submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, never questioning, always surrendering. These light sources never take a break. They don't have a union managing them that guarantees them a break every 4 hours. If they were to take a break, perhaps we would be doomed. You see, light is more. It symbolizes knowledge. Someone may say, brother, would you shed a little light on this verse for me? Could you shed a little light on this hadith for me? Light symbolizes knowledge, the greatest and lasting inner wealth. We're taught to seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave as Muslims. Knowledge removes spiritual ignorance, just as light removes darkness. Knowledge is power, but too much knowledge sometimes can blind a person. So we have to have the balance. We have to have the perfect amount. We live in the age of enlightenment. We need lamps to guide us to scientific query, to help us find a needle in a haystack, or to help us find our way in darkness. It is through light that we discover things. It is through light that we are guided. The example of Allah's light is that of a niche. In ecology, a niche is a term describing a way of life for a species. And isn't it interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first thing that He puts in the fetus at 17 days is the heart. He built us from our heart outward. He started with our heart. And we spend the rest of our lives trying to keep it pure. A niche is a habitat supplying the factors necessary for the existence of an organism or species, and no species can live without light. You see, the factors that are necessary for this species is the Quran and the Sunnah. And the more Quran and the Sunnah we have, the more light we have, the more elevated we are, the happier we are. The more people love us, and the more we love other people. If there's no physical food, we would have a physical death. If there's no spiritual light, we will have a spiritual death. To the Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the light. His or her source of illumination. And it is through His perfect speech, the Kalam of Allah, the Quran, that we are guided. A niche is also a place of employment or activity for which a person is best fitted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I created man and jinns for naught, except that they serve me. The greatest employment, the greatest thing that your heart can be doing is serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No activity is more suitable for mankind than fulfilling his or her role as vicegerents in this universe, as da'is inviting people to the light, as servants of Allah. The first 3 points in this divine parable center around the symbols of the niche, the lamp, and the glass, that protective globe. A niche is a little shallow functional and ornamental recess in the wall of an Eastern house, fairly high from the ground, in which a lamp before the days of electricity were placed. And this niche is quite interesting because it's sort of octagonal in structure, and therefore the beams of light will bounce from every single spot of that niche into a whitewashed room and flood the room with light. Its height enabled it to diffuse the light in the room and minimize the shadows or any kind of darkness, any kind of shadiness in life. The background of the wall and the sides of the niche helped throw the light well into the room. It also acted as a reflector. The opening in front made the way for the light to be reflected. The same is true with spiritual light, my brothers and sisters. God has placed our hearts in a niche, and that niche is between our breast or chest bones, and it holds our heart. If we are illuminated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's light, and we place ourselves in heart high above worldly things, the lowest, it will have a niche or a habitation of its own. A niche in which revelation and other signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are filled will produce a person of influence, a person of security, a person of chivalry, a person of knowledge, light, and courage. You see, it is this light, my beloved brothers and sisters, that makes a Muslim a mu'min. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a Muslim is one in whom you are safe from his tongue and hands. But a mu'min is one in whom you can entrust your life and your property. There's a lot of difference between a Muslim and a mu'min. You see, a mu'min is the kind of person that I can say, brother, I'm going to go to Saudi Arabia and study Arabic for a couple of months. And you're going to look after my affairs, and when I come back, they're going to be in better shape than when I left them. A niche in which revelation and other signs of Allah are filled, produce people of influence, produce change agents, produce people in a community that just by being in their presence, the light of Allah that is alive within them actually affects you. And you change. You transform yourself from a person that does dark and shady things to a person that does things that pleases Allah. But you see, Allah even added to that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala added to the oil lamp a globe. And that globe is amazing, because what is the globe made out of? A globe is made out of sand, out of dirt. And then it is purified by the fire and made into crystal. Every bit of dirt that gets on the heart of the believer, what does he do? He crystallizes it and turns it into light by transforming his life and being obedient to Allah and purifying himself or herself. A globe made of sand so purified that when added to the lamp, it produces a superior light. Think about it. If any of you ever had a kerosene lantern, when you put that globe on the lantern, all of a sudden you'll see little stars on the wall, like crystals, because the purified globe actually amplifies the light that's already there. So as we purify ourselves, we amplify the light of Allah that comes into us when we say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu rasuluh. The globe further protects one's light. You see, if you didn't have that globe, if you weren't purifying yourself, the wind would blow that flame. It might even blow it out. Someone who came with the wind of doctrine that was inaccurate, a flawed aqidah, a flawed understanding, the light would go out. That globe protects us also from mosquitoes and other lowlifes that might want to come and affect our light. The globe doubles as a safety from the raw flame. It keeps the flame balanced and under control. It keeps the flame centered. The lamp is the core of spiritual truth, which is real illumination. The niche is nothing without it. The niche is actually made for it. Our hearts are made to be purified by the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The glass or globe is the transparent medium through which the light passes. the glass made of purified sand. The sand received clarity via a fire lit by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's energy source. On the one hand, it protects the light from moss and other forms of low life, lower motives in mankind, from gusts of wind or passions, as we might call it, on the other hand. It also transmits the light through a medium which is made up of and akin to the grosser substances of the earth, sand, soda, potash, etc. So arranged as to admit the subtle to the gross by its transparency. You see, we come into Islam as weak people, but the more we apply the divine revelation and the more we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is said in the verse that it is light upon light. It is faith with action, and then that increases our status, insha'Allah, our maqam, our station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sand received clarity via a fire lit by Allah's energy source. So the spiritual truth has to be filtered through human language or human intelligence to make it intelligible to mankind. The glass by itself does not illuminate. It doesn't shine or reflect by itself. If you have a case of lanterns in your garage, but you don't have a fire in the middle of that lantern, those lanterns are useless. But when the light comes into it, it shines like a brilliant star. Men and women of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who possess Allah's truth are themselves illuminated by Allah's light, and they become like illuminating media through which that light spreads and permeates human life. When that light is in the heart of a man and he is the Imam of his house, his wife experiences him as a blessing. His children experience him as a blessing. And that light from him radiates and affects the lives of his wives and his children. And they are enlightened by his behavior. I said what I've said, and I seek forgiveness with Allah. I ask you to seek forgiveness, that He will forgive us all. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. The oil in this lamp is ignited or lit by the oil of a tree full of blessings, an olive tree. Olive trees, if you look at them, are not extremely impressive in their outward appearance. Their leaves are sort of dull, greenish brown color. The size of the tree is inconspicuous. But from this tree we have the blessing of lamp fuel, ointments, and the best of cooking oils. For centuries, kings and queens have been anointed by olive oil. When a lamp was filled with olive oil, the wick maintained a steady flame until the fuel ran out. And so it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's people. When we don't eat from Allah's speech, we develop spiritual eating disorders, and we aren't spiritually well. But when we are filled with His light, our lights shine brightly and give us steady, strong, radiant light. Olive trees live for thousands of years. And when we are fortified by the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are influential and our legacies live for thousands of years. The mystic olive is not localized, the verse says. It is neither of the east nor of the west. You see, if it was of the east, it would get limited sunrise. If it was of the west, it would get limited sunrise. But it's right in the center, so it gets the maximum amount of light. So it is with believers when we are attuned to the word of Allah. Allah's light is universal, it's not limited. If the tree were only to get the eastern rays of sun, only which side of the tree would flourish. That's why we turn our plants. All of those who have potted plants on the outside, we turn them so that each side of the plant gets light. Each day we should be turning ourselves toward Allah and making sure that we're being filled with the light of Allah by reading Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows for us to have perpetual light. Light that will illuminate us every day, whether the sun is shining or not. In parts of the world where it rains a lot, Portland, Oregon, there's high rates of depression. People actually sit under lights and take what is called light therapy. But see, all of us Muslims, we get light therapy every day, 5 times a day. The light of Allah creates an oil or energy force within us that radiates, shines, and glows without a match, a lighter, or any kind of fire. The light of Allah is a glorious, illimitable light which cannot be described or measured. Just as there are grades of olive oil, there are grades of spiritual light that we can aspire to give off. So my question to you today, beloved brothers and sisters, is your light a refrigerator light, one of those little 15-watt bulbs that you can't hardly find the eggs if they're in the back behind the vegetables? Or are you one of those believers that has one of those 3-way bulbs? One day it's 100 watts, one day it's 150, and one day it's 300. Or are you one of those burn-out bulbs? What kind of light are you giving off, brothers and sisters? What wattage do you have? What spiritual wattage do you have? What grade are you intending to be? The light of Allah cannot be described fully or measured. We as humans can attain to grades passing transcendency into regions of spiritual height, heights which are beyond our imagination, heights we can scarcely conceive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this as light upon light. Allah sets forth this parable, this likeness, these similarities, instances, similitudes, and examples for us to reflect and ponder. And he goes on to say, lit is such a light in houses which Allah hath permitted to be raised to honor, for the celebration in them of his name. In them is he glorified in the morning and in the evening, by men and women whom neither traffic nor merchandise can divert from the remembrance of Allah, nor from regular prayer, nor from the practice of regular charity. The only fear is for the day when hearts and eyes will be transformed in a world wholly new. Remembrance of Allah, my beloved brothers and sisters, is wider than just 5 daily prayers. It includes silent contemplation, active service, perpetual acts and deeds of kindness and obedience to Allah, and service toward his creatures. Regular prayers and regular charity are the social acts performed through the organized community, but remembrance is a personal act of worship that others cannot see. The light of Allah, like good olive oil, affects us both internally and externally. It affects what people see us do and what we do for Allah alone. The heart of the believer in its purity and clarity is likened to a lamp in transparent and jewel-like glass, and the Quran by which it is guided are likened to good, pure, shining oil in which there is no impurity or deviation. Perhaps the believer's position is where the wick is in the lamp, centered in the middle. If we are grounded in the good oil of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance, then our flame will burn brightly and strong. The globe of knowledge protects us, and we clean it 5 times a day to ensure no soot gets on it and that our light never becomes dim. This light comes from a balanced path, not left wing or right wing, no rigidity, but one right in the middle. It is light upon light. The light guides us to works, and the works spread the light from our niche to the world. The source of light in the oil cannot give light, and the flame will burn out without its source. Good knowledge and good actions produce great light and great energy. It is through this light that we are changed, modified, revolutionized, converted, and changed into different forms and states. Transformation has occurred when we give off something different. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us all. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to place light in our hearts, and on our tongues light, and in our ears light, and in our sight light, and above us light, and below us light, and to our right light, and to our left light, and before us light, and behind us light. Oh Allah, place in our souls light, magnify for us light, and amplify for us light. Make for us light, and make us a light. Oh Allah, grant us light and place light in our nerves, and in our body light, and in our blood light, and in our hair light, and in our skin light. Oh Allah, make for us a light in our graves and a light in our bones. Increase us in light, increase us in light, increase us in light. Grant us light upon light. Announcements, I'm sorry.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, I'd like to start with some good news. Today is exactly